Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special interview episode of Oceanus FM. I'm your host, Alleykat, and this episode wouldn't be possible without the hard work of the OFM team. So a big shout out to Dreamer, Uriel, and the current Monarchs. Thank you for making this possible. And of course, our special guests. And tonight's special guest is none other than Preacher. Preacher, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Ali, my man, thank you very much for having me.
So the reason that we've got Preacher on the show, as many of you know now, Soulbound Studios has launched its new community engagement event, Raiders of the Lost Vault, for its upcoming game, Chronicles of Elyria. And the grand prize for the Oceanus, for one lucky Oceanus member, will be an entire kingdom, so the fourth kingdom slot. But none of the candidates can secure that without your support. So we at OFM are looking to give everyone a platform who's serious about going after this crown to communicate their concepts and for all of you to get to know them a little bit better. So that's why we've got Preacher here today. And before we get into the interview itself, today we want to talk about you, Preacher. We want to talk about your vision, your concept, and please correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Kingdom of Caprican, is that correct?
Oh, boom. Headshot.
Caprican. And we want to talk about the Kingdom of Caprican, the competition overall, and the other contestants, and all of that. We'll save that for a future episode. Tonight's episode is really about you and your ideas. So,
sure.
Without further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Oceanus community and Chronicles of Elyria?
So, first became aware of COE probably around the time of the first Kickstarter. Just randomly looking. I was actually looking for something else. I was looking into, I forget the name of it, Shadows of something made by Lord British. RIP. Anyway,
Shadows of the Colossus? Was it? Something? It was like. I know what you're talking about.
Shadows of the Avatar.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
That's it. Because a huge fan of Lord British. Anyway, I started doing a little bit of research because I was, thinking about backing that game. And then, a lot of people were saying, oh, you should just wait a little bit extra and, go into this game called Chronicles of Elyria. And I'm like, what's that? So I started to do my research, instantly fell in love with it, fell in love with Caspian's pitch. It just seemed so out of the box. So not a theme park, so not an empty sandbox, just something where you can go in, create your own stories. And for me, that just sold me straight away. So I put my hand in. I think at that time I was a Bloodline or maybe Trison Rider. Whatever those original packages were, I can't remember the name. That's it.
That's where we all started, right? We all started at Bloodline.
It was the best value, man. Anyway, got into it, and then I fell in with a good community. I fell in with the what is now the Wolflands of Aquitus. At that time, under Ray Wolfblade. Shout out to Ashavira. Thanks for all the role play. It was really good. I pretty much sat hours and hours in front of Discord role playing my character. I was digging the Viking theme. Anyway, as things progressed, I got more involved in the game, and I thought, you know what, this is. I originally wanted to start a logging company because at that time they just released information about, whatever you do physically changes your character. And for me, that was exciting. I wanted to go into warfare, so I thought, well, you want to be this, hulking Arnold Schwarzenegger brute. What better thing to do in your spare time than like lumberjack trees on the side, right? So. But then as I got more into it, I thought, well, I want to do something else. Like I started to get really excited about the aristocracy packages, particularly a Baron. So I upgraded, was still with Ashi. And then I started to get a little bit more involved in what was Carpentaria then. You remember those days, dude? Cheers, Calgos.
Yeah, Calgos, back when we served on the same Kingdom Council.
That's right.
Good days.
Council of 13.
Council of 13.
It could have been a bit small. Small council would have been better.
We never quite got to 13.
No, we didn't.
At least.
So got into a barony package, and then at that time, like you said, we were getting into the Council of 13 and starting to organise, and it was a very different time. There was, at least I felt, and I don't know about you, Ali, and the rest of the sort of old timers out there, what they felt, but at that time the game seemed a little bit more imminent. like it was happening. Something was happening within the next 6 to 8 months. We all knew something was happening. So things were starting to move very fast. And at that time, I got my hands into a count package, and I really did want the hierarchical experience. So I bid farewell to Ray, to Ashy, and then I moved on to the all-potent Zax, Sultan. We formed a really good bond, and I started to help him bring together his duchy, because at that time there weren't a lot of counts around. There were a lot of people that were interested, but to have a count, that was something big. Whereas now, it's not nothing, but it's not the same as it was back then. The impact has been lessened. So I moved into Zach's duchy, and we started working together, started to get more intimately involved with Carpinteria. I decided, well, what I want to do now wasn't aligning with where I was at. I wanted to start to help to lay the groundwork, really start to lay us some foundation for Calgos and work with Zach. So we put more money down, and we got into a Duke package. I think I was the third Duke on APAC behind Zax and Emery. And then that's when it really started to, I suppose, kick off, and the reality started to set in, started to recruit more counts. Back then, what was Stig, Raven, Dream, who's still with me, shout out Dream.
Hey, Dream.
Really, really starting to bring it together. And then I suppose as we got more involved, Zax and I sort of, I suppose, spearheading, for want of a better word, helping Calgos set up a kingdom. We decided that with the amount of effort we were putting in, we probably could have run something ourselves. We probably could have done something ourselves. So we pretty much, flipped a coin, and unfortunately, doesn't matter what the outcome is, because Zach's beat me to it. He upgraded to king, and I bid Calgos farewell and went over to what is now Lorvascara, and did essentially exactly the same thing again, man, which was I suppose a process that took about 6 weeks, a lot of late nights. I know we've had a lot of chats late at night, bouncing ideas off each other, really brainstorming, grabbing those thought bubbles and putting them down, and really laying them into something foundational and something functional. So that's how Lorvascara was born. From then, just been continually building the community, really within the kingdom. I haven't been as active in the broader COE community as much lately, because I've really wanted to focus on my people. I'm proud to say that I know every one of them by name, and I've been able to connect with every one of them personally. I think it was Rod that made a comment on my Caprican thread, that I'm continually checking in. That's who I am, man. And unfortunately, when you're trying to balance this community that you're building, you're balancing home and family life, you're balancing your work, it doesn't leave a lot of time for everything else. So the activity in the greater COE community has fallen down. However, when was it? Probably around December last year, SBS put out the call to the current monarchs to get them involved in helping write the law for Oceanus. So you could bring in a second or any duke. I think they were the rules. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Zach's brought me in, and Uriel at the time, that's all we had. There were a lot of other guys in there. The Noble brought you in, Ali. We had Ashley, yeah. And pretty much what we did there was formulate a concept and an idea that we all, even Emery, we all came from this one sort of seed, and we separately grew out into differing tree, right? You could say the metaphor is the tree is Oceanus, and the branches are the different kingdoms that are in there. So I had the idea that what we should do is do a combined lore piece. So we all start from our singular origin, and I pretty much created a story that, I don't know if I should ruin it. I probably shouldn't put spoiler tags on it and just say I created this story.
There was a cool story there.
That's right. That combined all of the kingdoms, and then the idea was that we'd each create then our separate lore pieces. So AQ would do their separate lore piece that would evolve from that combined story. LV did theirs, or I did LV's, and then Tilsia did their one, and then we submitted that. And then what? Since then, man, I mean, I suppose it's just been continuing to grow the community, really working with LV. It's busy, man. It's hard, getting all these people together, understanding their ideas, finding a place where they fit their ideas, incorporating their ideas into a bigger picture. Yeah. So then I just thought, you know what? I'm investing all of this time right now. Contacted SBS and tried to get my hands on a Monarch package. Had some arrangements in that space, and then ended up paying out a Monarch package. So that's where I currently stand now. And unfortunately, that couldn't translate over into what is now the Fourth Kingdom. But having said that, after I've had discussions with Caspian, and I'm actually really supportive of this event. I mean, I don't particularly feel, for want of a better word, butthurt or anything like that. I'm absolutely supportive of this. I think that not only is it great to see people generating content, it's similar to when we had the Searing Plague. LV went in with a goal of seeing what our community could do before we joined the larger community, and they generated hype, man. There was a lot of hype. So I'm supportive of this event and how it's generating hype, how it's getting people excited. I'm getting a lot of support. I'm getting a lot of DMs from people, to be quite frank, I've never even met. And thanks very much, guys. It lets me know that you appreciate what I'm putting out there, and us, the candidates, putting these things out there lays a spark in other people to start to generate content. Like, I've seen stories, I've seen biased, I only say that because it's the only way to identify it, the biased rankings of all the candidates. I've seen all that, and that stuff is great. And when we see and when we have these events, it generates this hype, and it gets people that perhaps have been around a long time, like ourselves, and some of the monarchs. It puts a little bit of that fire back in there. Not really that it's gone, but just that it needs to be stoked a little bit. And I suppose that's where we are now, isn't it? We're stoking it.
Well, I mean, I 100% agree with you. It was the Searing Plague where we first started doing Oceanus FM, for example. These community engagement events are pretty successful in that regard. I've been around for ages, as long as you have, since the Kickstarter. And OFM was when I really started to step up to get involved with the broader community at large during the Searing Plague. So I totally understand that. So was there a particular moment where you were like, okay, that's it, I'm going to go for this Fourth Kingdom? What brought you to that point? What made you want to go for this monarchy?
I suppose when I look at it, people sit here and they say, oh, you're co-founding LV, and that's true. But when they look at LV, that's some of my contribution, but that's Zach's baby. That's Zach's baby. If I put a family analogy around it, I'm an uncle. I come in, I care for the child, I love the child, I'll always be there for the child, but it's not my child. Right? I want my child now. I want to get some of those ideas that perhaps were weeded out, a little bit too dark, a little bit too light, whatever it was, and I want to create that content now, and I want to put that into a kingdom that I'm going to call my baby. I want to run it very differently to LV. I want to have a clear oligarchy. I want it more tribalized. I've got a very different theme, and it's a theme that I've created. I could have recycled my Acheron theme. Like, it went through so many iterations. I had Acheron the barony, I had Acheron the county, Acheron the duchy. I was done with that. I wanted something new. And when I looked at Genoa, and we've had this conversation before, Ali, as well, I wanted Ogham. When we thought all the tribes were on the table, I wanted Ogham. My second one was Madari. Third one was Genoa. So this for me is now an opportunity where I can get some of my thought bubbles that perhaps didn't make it on paper, amend some others. I can create something new, and I can create it in an image that I want, and see if people subscribe to that. I can work with different individuals. I can work with other people that have different ideas, and I can build something that hopefully is exciting for the community. It's no different for me than if I'm playing D&D. Why do you roll a new character? You've got an established character, right? Why do you want to roll a new one? Because it's that excitement. You want something different. You want to play something different. You've been doing something for a long time, and if it doesn't work out for me, I'll continue to do that, because that's always going to be, that LV is always going to be a part of me. No different to how Carpentaria is a part of me, right? I poured a lot of myself onto Carpentaria as well, but I want to create something different. I want to create a different vision, and I want that vision to have a foundation that's solely with me, and then I want input from other people, and I want to build together.
So what is the core idea behind this vision, and what do you think makes this the pitch of the Kingdom of Caprican unique?
For me, it's I suppose, philosophically, nothing is unique. Everything is a modification or a borrowed idea from somewhere. There's very few stories. You pick up a novel, you pick up a PC game. There's very few things that you say, wow, that's actually really original. But what I've done with Caprican is when I think of Genoa, I think of Genoa, Dras, Toresk. For me, Toresk don't necessarily fit in what I'm thinking, but they more fit with. So obviously my concept is like Mesoamerican, right? Yeah. When I think of Genoa, I think of the Apocalypto, Aztecs, Mayans fighting each other. They're very tribalized. There's a very warrior caste, warrior centric hierarchical structure, very steeped in a very traditional old culture that's alien. It's very different to what the typical Westerner would look at and say, wow, I can relate to that. It's something extremely different. I borrowed some aspects of that, and I've put it on what I think, I suppose, attach that to the Genoa, because it would be a shame for me, for the unique tribe of Kingdom 4. Dras and Toresk are in the other kingdoms as well. For me, it would be a crime if I didn't try and center the kingdom concept around the unique tribe that makes that kingdom special. All kingdoms are special. They're all got a different landmass. They're going to have very different biomes. They're going to have a different play style. But for me, I wanted to center something around the Genoa. So I thought, when I look at the Genoa, instantly I think of a Mesoamerican type theme. I wanted to take aspects of that. A lot of people saying it's Aztec. To be honest, I borrowed most of it from Mayan. So you heard that here first.
Gotcha.
Just hashtag Whiskey King, by the way.
Hashtag Whiskey King. And in your forum posts, you talk about the advantages of Kingdom 4, and you actually do a breakdown as to where you think the various kingdoms are going to land, because obviously we haven't done domain selection yet. Yes. I'll put this out there. I very much agree with your breakdown. I think it makes a lot of sense. And you're looking at Kingdom 4, and one of the things you point out in your post is the biome. And one of the things you say is, above all else, I see Kingdom 4 and hopefully Caprican as a place of extreme playstyle, much like Kingdom 1. And you say a bit more, then you go on to say, it will be harsh and unforgiving, but also rewarding and extremely generous to those who persevere. So what do you mean when you characterize Kingdom 4 and its biomes as both unforgiving and generous?
Well, I mean, if you look at the lore, and when I was drawing those together, I started to fall in love with it more. And I suppose I've had many a conversation with Emery where he sort of banged on, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but he has banged on about, the frost by the Alpine, the mountainous region. And I suppose not having any interest in Herothi or limited interest in Brudvir, I hadn't really contemplated what the actual biome and how that will affect it, because I was always going to play a Neren. It wasn't my first choice. I couldn't get the choices I wanted. I knew LV didn't want and Genoa, so I pretty much resigned to the fact that I'll take whatever I can get. And Neren seems to be a good choice for quite a neutral play style that has its, it's the human in every D&D game. It's the master of nothing, jack of all trades.
For what it's worth, I love the humans in every D&D game. I always pick the humans. I don't know why. I guess I like the most generic option, but sometimes that's how you do become the special snowflake, because everybody else is elves and dragons and stuff. You're like, nah, I'm an accountant.
I can't. I'm always a half orc.
Yeah, nice.
But anyway, Emery was really talking about this, and it got me thinking, this is an opportunity where I can really explore this biome. And, reading up and sifting through the lore, it became apparent that, this place is hostile. I mean, it will kill any adventurers that come in there. There's poisonous gas. There's God knows what type of brain-eating bugs, lay something in your skull and then a worm comes out or something. Like when I started reading through the lore, I very much got a Skull Island, Kong kind of, very foreign, very dark, mysterious place. And, it also mentions something in there about the Genoa. It says that, the fauna is quite dangerous, and that's how they pretty much blood themselves. They go out very 300, like go kill a bear or go do something, and I'm just thinking, well, what type of animals would these be? And understanding this is a fantasy game, is it some type of dinosaur, is it like some velociraptor bird kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think, and I'm thinking, this is a place where it notes down such a extreme variance. In one state, this place is very providing. It states numerous times in the lore that's been picked up that the Genoa don't have to leave their biome. They've got everything they need. The Drass have the jet-like substance, and they have an abundance of alchemical herbs. The Toresk have super fertile fields, and these like what I'm imagining to be like rice paddy, like outcrops. It's very boggy, so it's very nutrient-rich soil. But then at the other end, you have these extremes where the Toresk suffer landslides and cave-ins and just quicksand and quick mud and things like this. The Drass, while they're immune to poison, nothing else lives in their biome. They have to eat rotten meat. Like the Genoa, to go prove themselves as a hunter, need to go out and kill like this man-eating beast. Like they're not the top of the food chain. Like when you're out there by yourself and you haven't got your buddies, you haven't got your squad with you, you're there, you're mano a mano with the things that are around you, whether that be megafauna, megaflora, insects, whatever it is, and you have to be, you have to be on your game. But if you can master that environment, it provides you everything you need. It's a breadbasket. If we look at a real world translation now, you look at the Amazon, there's still so many things that we haven't found in the real world. We're still finding bugs. We're still finding varieties of plants that have medicinal values. And I just think that SBS, at least I believe, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts as well, I believe that while they've created their own world, they've been very careful to pick up little pieces of the real world and make that translatable to the character, to the player. They've been very careful to map how the geography works and how you have where the rain regions would be and how mountains would affect climate and whatnot. So for me, it's almost improbable that they'll create a rainforest or a jungle and not translate that to how jungle and rainforest is in the real world, which is extremely life rich. As somebody who lived in the jungle for a year, I can tell you that there is not 1 inch of the jungle that is not crawling or alive, man. And it's there to eat you, whether it's a leech or whether it's a bug. Mosquitoes are killing themselves going through mozzie nets. Like, it's alive, man. And I just think that dichotomy of play between a place that is so dangerous and will kill you if you're not on your game, to a place that's so providing and almost nurturing in what it gives you that you don't have to leave if you can master it.
Well, I for one, I really hope you're right, because like that would be just such an awesome location to exist in the world. If somebody was outside of your biome, it would be a great place for them to try to visit, just to see the difference. I mean, that's all very cool, and maybe that's also a good segue into how the biome plays into your security policy. In your post, you say an attacker must be supremely determined and prepared to suffer non-combat related losses to invade Kingdom 4. So is this idea of attrition sort of the cornerstone of your security policy, or is there more to it?
I mean, when we're looking at a strategy, and that's what it is. It's not a tactic. A tactic is a squad-based plan. When we're looking at a strategy, that's the kingdom wide. We look at I can only draw on what the law says. Now, I have to also couple that with the fact that we were waiting some time, and you've heard me, Ali, rant about this before. They released the law pieces about each tribe. Then I think it was, and I'm paraphrasing, I think it was the Kipik that people were like, oh, the Kipik can't use wood, they have to live in trees. And Caspian pretty much came on Discord and said, look, if you don't want to live in trees, that's fine. This is just the law that they live by. You can actually do whatever you want. Yeah. So for me, that means I have to couple this. I have to couple strategies like defense with what the law tells me and what realistically we know and we know works, either from, there's universal concepts that work. Choke points always work. It works in every RTS game. It works in FPS games. It works in the real world. We know choke points work. We know from history, we've seen combatants like some of the Romans, when they went to conquer Parthia, they weren't prepared. They went into the desert and they died. And they were pretty much slaughtered. They were cut off. We saw the same with Napoleon going into Russia. He wasn't prepared. He died. So this is the same thing, I think. There has to be there's a natural barrier that's already there. It's mentioned in the Toresk law. There we're going to have quick mud. We're going to have landslides. We're going to have extremely harsh weather. We're going to have droughts. They're subject to drought, which when, people don't think about that, it's a wetland, right? But it's going to go through seasons. So if you're an invading army, you have to think to yourself, well, when is it that I'm actually going to invade? Because if I'm going through the Toresk lands, when there's a drought on, I better have good water supplies. I could have a good supply chain, similar to the Druss lands, right? We know that from what we know of the law, the Druss fight very defensively. That's how they are, because they pretty much let their biome do their business for them. Now that works on a law level, on a conceptual level. I'd be looking at to bolster the defenses that they naturally put in place, their traps, their poisons, their very biochemical type warfare. I see a lot of hit and run tactics, poisoned meat, no supply. So if they're working down to my capital, which I'll place in the Genoa territories.
This sounds a strategic choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have to go through these elements already. That's a land-based invading army. We encounter something different if we're in the Navy or if we're in a naval engagement.
Right.
But then we look at the Genoa again and what the biome tells us. It's a jungle. There's no siege equipment. It's going to be very hard for siege equipment. We've found this in the real world in Vietnam. We had to, deploy Agent Orange, extensive amount of napalm to burn out the jungle because it was just too hard to fight. And you got people that are like, well, you'll have tribes that are not accustomed to this. You say, okay, we'll get Drass to fight. We know Drass are physically weak. One-on-one, they're not going to be able to take out a Genoan. We know that simply because of how SBS has described it. And SBS has also been very realistic with how they've described PvP. It doesn't matter if you're a godlike PvPer. They're putting the metrics down to 3 NPCs will kill you. It doesn't matter how good you are. So we have to take these type of things into consideration. So when we're looking at that, when I look at Kingdom 4, it's a very defensible location. We can create natural choke points. If we look at the map, we haven't obviously got a massive amount of detail on where the heavy bog is, where the dense vegetation are, but that's the things we need to take into consideration.
Yeah.
And all of this is based on theory crafting before we actually see more detail. But where there's dense jungle and there's patches of open jungle, either deforested or lightly or dense jungle, that's where we want to place our defenses, because an enemy's not going to want to go through there, and if they do, we'll see them way before they know where we are, and we'll conduct the guerrilla tactics that the tribes are known for in those biomes.
Just going over your Kingdom post, and if you haven't checked out Preacher's Kingdom post, do yourself a favor, scroll down to the description, give that a click, because it is a feast for the eyes. It is just one pretty Kingdom platform, I have to admit. So
thank you, man. Thank
you. Your kingdom is more than the environment, though, right?
That's right.
Tell us about the court of Caprican and the circle of heads and the elders, and how do they all function as a cohesive governing body in your eyes? What's the vision here?
So what I've seen, so we've gone through stages with COE, right? I see when we initially were around, every count had their court. We had, 13, 14 different positions for a count. What we see is that there's not a lot of population for that kind of gameplay, right?
Yep.
Nor, as a duke, do I want a count that has been deemed the equivalent of Hand of the King to be telling me what I'm doing. That's, for me, that creates instant tension, because you've got somebody who's, either gone through a hell of a lot of work to acquire a duchy title or a ducal claim, or you've got somebody that's forked out a hell of a lot of money. Now, them having a count tell them what to do, for me, that creates instant tension. Whether that count has the authority of the king of the south, makes no difference. I want to eliminate that. So what I'm putting in place is so we have the circle of heads. Again, this is an adaptation of a Mayan way of government. You essentially have each city was its own capital, right? And it had it's pretty much its own territory. And this is how I'm very much envisaging it. And I've also borrowed a little bit from AQ in this regard. Cool. Each duke is going to be in charge of their own lands. I'm going to have very minimal input. I don't want to tell them what laws they can and can't make. I don't want to tell them how they're to conduct their trade. I don't want to tell them how they're to conduct their defenses. They've either put down a lot of money or worked a hell of a lot to get that title. They should be capable of doing that by themselves. I don't want to be involved in that. Where I want to step in is I want to have overarching laws, as you've seen, and policies that outlay a set of frameworks that each duke can work within. So, one question that was asked to me, are you going to encourage racial killings if you're Genoan? No, I'm not. I want to try and reunite. I want to try and reunite the tribes as much as I can. It may be built into the mechanics that I can't, but I want to try and get there. But that's what I'm talking about. So, in my set of laws, whether you're Torres, Dras, or Genoan, you're equal. The law applies to you as it applies to anybody else. And that law not only governs the individual or the private citizen, but it governs the nobility as well. So the circle of heads comes together. I'm viewing it very much as an oligarchy, which means we're a circle of peers. This is exactly the same as the Knights of the Round Table or the Jedi Council, right? These are all cool concepts, but I'm not going to go and make the Jedi Council because it doesn't.
Why not?
Right?
Please. No.
So we all come together, and I've sort of laid down the phases of, I think, how this is going to work. Because at the beginning, there's going to be people that are going to come in. I may or may not know them, and we're going to have to build a relationship, and we're going to have to understand how each other works and thinks. So in the infancy of the circle of heads, I'll be the one floating my ideas, looking for feedback, but ultimately I'll be making the decisions because I've got the initial vision. I'm laying the foundation, and I'm starting to put up the scaffolding that will create the kingdom. When we move into, I suppose, the adolescence, we're starting to understand each other. The dukes and I are starting to understand the dynamic changes. I'm not a dictator. I don't want to be a dictator. I want us to come together as a group of peers where I'm the first among peers. I will listen to advice. If I have a strong idea about something, I'll voice it. If the majority of my circle of heads, my dukes, say, that's a shit idea, we don't want that, then we don't get it. It's as simple as that. We'll work on a voting system. This is not a long bureaucratic process by any means. It's going to be, a meet, talk, get some feedback, then make a decision. When we move into the maturity, this is where I think it gets a little bit more interesting, and I want to make sure that everybody in the kingdom feels engaged. The circle of heads will not only incorporate the dukes, which by right should be there because they control large portions of land, but it will also include prominent citizens. So your counts, your barons, your private citizens, your bloodline pack people, somebody that's made a name for themselves. Somebody that wants to be involved, has displayed the leadership, is essentially the cream that's risen to the top of the jar, the milk jar, right? I want to pick those people up. I don't want us to remain stagnant in this little group that never engages with the outside world and make decisions in a silo. I want to grab these people and bring them in and see what they're about. And those positions will be elected by the people, not by us. So if you're a prominent, let's say a count, Ali, you're a prominent count, the circle of heads will put out the call, we need one more person, an election will happen, the people will vote that person in, and that person will serve for a specified term.
Do you imagine that only happening in, because you were talking about the various government stages, or governance stages, sorry, where you're talking about infancy, adolescence, and eventually maturity. So is that something you're going to have right away, or is that something you're going to have in the more the adolescent phase?
No, I think we need to be, when I'm looking to increase the number of circle of heads, it needs to be when myself and my dukes are extremely comfortable. Yeah. We're comfortable with the kingdom concept. We're comfortable with how things are currently set up. We're very comfortable with each other and talking quite freely and frankly, because let's face it, what we're doing now is Discord. This game for me is a game about relationships. You have to be connected with the people that serve you. You in turn have to serve them. Nobody wants a dictator that sits up there, starts shooting off ideas and shooting off, crap at everybody. Nobody's going to stand for that, and I don't want that. So we have to be in a state where we're comfortable. We've almost achieved, I suppose, a bit of a wanky term, but we've almost achieved a state of transcendence, right? We are comfortable now that we can bring other people in and inject new ideas into this group and understand what's best for not only ourselves, as individuals, as individual dukes, but as what's best for how the kingdom operates. If we try to do that too soon, we're getting too many ideas. It's all flowing in. You've got people that are working their own agenda. We haven't built up any trust, and I don't want that. I don't want us to be bogged down with all these ideas, and people get angsty, nothing's occurring. Councillor 13. Nothing is happening, and all we're doing is creating a quagmire. We need to be in a state, myself and my dukes need to be in a state where we understand what we want and we're ready to inject new ideas and take those ideas on board for what they are and understand them.
And in your forum posts, you outline your extensive history in online games. You talk about, I believe it was Ultima, you talk about Star Wars, you talk about quite a few different games. In your experience, have you ever seen that kind of level of cohesiveness achieved?
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say yes, I have. But look, it takes a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. It takes a lot of work. You have to, and it's going to be harder for Kingdom 4 because we may have people that have yet to choose a kingdom that want the Genoa. I know the Southern Coalition has popped up, and apparently there's a handful of people that have always want to play Genoa, but never reached out. There's going to be people here, and we're going to bring all these different personalities. There may not be any dukes. I know. I'll put it out there. I know for sure one paid duke has expressed an interest to serve under me, if Caprican gets up. I know there's a substantial number of counts who will come over, and I know that there's an established population that sits under me now in Law Viscara that will come over. So there's room to build those relationships, and I think it's important that we start to do that, and we start to get a cohesive gel. And I've seen that in other games. I suppose the one that sticks out for me the most is Ultima Online. So for anybody who played, there was an Oceanus shard or Oceania, and there was a roleplay guild on there that was called Orc. You could pick up these orc masks and put orcs on, and a major character looked like an orc.
That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a game that reminded me of the 2000 version of what I think COE is going to be. It's going to be very open. You create your own stories. So we used to create our own stories, and we used to have inter-guild wars. You'd have the paladins come out and try and smash the orc horde and all of this and that. And I suppose sitting down and working with different guilds who had different egos and different stakes in the game. You know, they obviously wanted their players to feel very, very powerful and to have prominent parts in the story. But we also needed to acknowledge that there is a bad guy in this. We need to sort out what the story is going to be. We need to come together to understand, you know, is this a permadeath event? You know, are people expected to delete their characters after this, which adds another layer of complexity to it. And managing all those different egos, and it was hard, but when it worked, and it did quite often, because in any, you know, role playing itself is unfortunately, I think perhaps a dying art in a lot of the MMOs that are coming out now, because we were, I mean, it wasn't so much dying then, but it was on the decline. Because we'd established those relationships, we could sit down and we could say, okay, well, look, you're going to take a hit. You're going to lose your player-run town to the orcs are going to completely overrun it. We're going to sack it. We're going to destroy everything, you know. But then you'll come in and you'll, you know, completely, you know, lop us in half. And creating that story and that narrative provided enjoyment and entertainment for, you know, the people that were playing. And we needed that symbiosis for that to work. Otherwise you'd have your rogue elements that, nah, stuff this, I'm getting a raw deal, I'm pulling out, I'm not going to do it, and it was just, you know, we just needed that. We needed to have those established relationships, and it does work, but it does take effort.
Are you hoping to embrace those kinds of those role-playing elements and bring them into your kingdom platform? I mean, you have brought it into your kingdom platform. If anybody's clicked on that, but you bring it into your kingdom community. Is that something you want to focus on?
For me, there's no one focus. I don't believe you can have a one-horse kingdom, right? There can't be a kingdom that's just about drinking whiskey. There can't be a kingdom that's just about, you know, just you have to have balance. You have to provide an environment for everybody. I myself came into COE role-playing. I enjoyed many hours role-playing with Ashi and her crew. We were, you know, burly Viking-esque type raiding people. I think the only picture that had been released was the Uru and that sort of stuff to surround, because we didn't want to be blue giants, so we sort of just ignored that for a little bit. But, you know, I don't want to focus on any one thing. I think a kingdom needs to be a lot of things for a lot of people. Right, so for the role player, I want there to be role play. I've noted it down in my thread. You know, there's two phases of everything for me. There's the mechanical, and then there's the role play, right? And they can work hand in hand. You can have somebody that likes to be immersed. I spend hours creating a character backstory, tweaking my appearance to make sure it's exactly how I look or how I want to look, and then I jump into the game. If it doesn't seem, you know, acceptable for me as a character to do something, I'm not going to do it. That's me personally. I like that immersion. I'm not going to begrudge somebody that wants to go in and min-max. If that's how your play style is, do it. I'm not going to begrudge somebody, and if they want to be, you know, the typical PvP, you know, person that comes in and wants to rob everybody, murder, pillage, and plunder. That provides story content for people. That can provide a whole arc for somebody that wants to take up a bounty hunting career or something like that. That's an outlet. There's no one thing for me. It's about reaching balance between everything and being accepting of all different styles. So the role players, yes, role players are welcome. Yes, PvPers are welcome. You look at my platform, we have Ghost Warriors, right? Serpent Warriors. They're about small, tight-knit groups of core PvPers who all they want to do is raid, and I'm going to support that. They're going to report to one of my elders, who, sorry, I didn't touch on before. Just a quick, too long, didn't read. Elders are pretty much people that are not dukes and not in the circle of heads, but have a keen, distinct interest in something, and they'll provide reports and advise on things for us to make decisions.
Can they be non-dukes?
They can be anything anyone? They want. Okay. So they can already be a circle of heads member. They can be a duke, they can be a count, they can be whatever they want. They just have to have a keen interest in what they do.
And do you envision them being around right from the start, or is that something for when the kingdom reaches a bit more maturity?
I think these people can self-identify at the beginning, and I think we can see how it goes. None of these type of positions, they're not going to be hereditary. If for whatever reason, if you're not working out, and you know, or your life doesn't fit with the game right now, like myself, you know, I've got quite a busy family life. If I need to take a step back, I'll assign somebody else to do that role. It's similar to the elders. for instance, the Master of War, which you'll recognize the title. That person's
who's that? Where did that come from? I don't know the inspiration behind that at all.
So that person is going to be in charge of understanding and connecting with the barons on Discord, in-game, however he wants to do it, as long as he can deliver the goods, connect with each baron that's got troops deployed, and tell us, where are those troops? Where are they? In a succinct report. I don't want to have to, as a king, or I don't want my dukes to have to go out and try and coordinate all this information so we can make a decision. I want somebody that's got a keen interest in doing that to take charge of that. Take the reins on that, earn themselves a little bit of prestige because they're going to have a title. They'll probably get benefits. People that contribute get benefits. It's a meritocracy.
Circling back to Caprican law, I'm not going to read through them all right now, but you've very clearly stated them in simple to understand dot points on the platform if people want to check that out. There's one in particular that jumps out to me that I would like some more clarity on. I find it very fascinating. Everyone has the right to access education. What do you mean by that?
You know, look, it came up in the discussions that if I'm going to be a Genoan king, or I want to be a Genoan king, I may be hostile to the Dras. That's not my personal view, but some people want to immerse themselves in the law.
Yeah.
Right? In other kingdoms, you know, they talk a lot about, we're going to have the best universities, we're going to have the best army, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. I found that it's either not supported by the law, or they haven't actually outlined how they're going to get there. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is I want to set down the foundation that I don't want any elitism. If my dukes have a university, I want everybody, or if they put down some sort of educational facility, a blacksmithy that is taking apprentices or whatnot, I don't particularly want there to be overt favoritism, right? There's always going to be favoritism. I can't extinguish that, right? But what I can do is say that if you have a university, there is no "you must be noble" entry requirement.
Interesting.
Right? Everybody is allowed to enter. Whether or not you meet the grade as per that establishment is on them.
So may I suggest a hypothetical? This is just a hypothetical I want to put forward. I've invested in this big academy, and I'm a bit selective about who I want to attend because, you know, in my concept, it's a secret academy, or perhaps it's something that is very exclusive. In your kingdom, do I have a right to turn people away?
Yes, you do. Of course you do. What I'm trying to extinguish here, and specifically I did put it on education, right? So in that, I suppose perhaps I should clarify a little bit more. I'm not talking about your advanced, you know, classes or advanced roles. I'm talking about, you know, if there's a school for smiths, you know, this is a basic entry-level type of thing. That should be available to everybody. There should be no, you have to be Genoan or you have to be Toresk. In your situation, I think, yes, you can be selective. What we're talking about here is not a basic education. And I suppose I do very much need to clarify that. We're not talking about a basic education. We're talking about a more selective, almost secret society. Of course, right? That's sort of what you said. It's very secret. It's very selective. Of course, you can do what you want. If you want to make a club, you can have a club. What I'm saying, what I'm noting down here is the basic, I suppose, in mechanical terms, skill generating establishments, right? The only thing I can tie to, and this is hypothetical again, is SBS have noted down that, you know, baronies will have different group bonuses to city. So I don't want that type of access to these basic learning establishments limited. I want everybody to be able to take on the beginner role. If, of course, you're burgeoning on becoming a master architect or something, and there's only one person and he can only take one student, well, of course, he's going to select the student he wants. That's natural. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about very basic entry-level education.
Yeah, gotcha. So if I'm a generator of skill experience and I've set up an institution, the expectation is I'm not going to turn anyone away.
That's right.
Is that about
because
right?
that benefits the whole, and that in turn benefits you.
Yeah. So
because whatever fees or whatever you're generating from that, you simply get more of.
So you have a statement on your post, and the statement is on Lorvaskara, and it says the following: Lorvaskara, it is no secret I have a very deep friendship with Lorvaskara, its leadership, citizens, and ethos. Make no mistake, Caprican will be its own entity, acting in its own best interests. However, my hope is we can harness my friendship with LV to our advantage. I would be looking to work with LV to establish a mutual defense pact in relation to the stability of our shared island and trade treaties to take advantage of our shared border. You also specifically talk about the border a bit higher up in the post. You talk about the border with another kingdom as an advantage, which is a really interesting angle because a lot of people would view it as a security concern. But in your forum post, you describe the border in a positive light and in the lens of friendship. So with all that in mind, what do you say to people who love your concept but are hesitating to vote for you because they're worried that a vote for Preacher is a vote for a double kingdom? What do you say to those people?
So I'll touch on something before I forget about it. You said that I put the border in a positive light. I do. Yeah. But when you talked about security, the first thing I said was defending the border.
Yeah,
right?
True.
So I'm still a sovereign entity. I want to make that quite clear. I have no interest in double kingdom. When Noble split from Emery, he also said that he's not a double kingdom. It's just the same thing here. I have my own ideas. I have my own way of running things. And I have a very, very different setup to how LV is, and anybody that reads both of our forum posts will be easily be able to pick up the differences in how we're going to actually operate and how our themes are and how our cultures will be, hopefully. What I will touch on there is that I think it is absolutely remiss of any king to not capitalize on any established relationships he has with the other kingdoms. That is absolutely fundamental. How can you expect to come into a game that is about kingdoms and about relationships, in my view, and ignore that you have a very well established relationship with Lorvaskara? How would you view me as somebody that would come into my kingdom and I'm saying, oh no, sorry dudes, I'm not gonna capitalize on being able to trade with LV because I don't want any perceptions that I'm a double kingdom. Of course, I want to put forward my people, Caprican #1. That's absolutely pivotal. I will exploit any relationship I can, and that means I will exploit my relationship with Zax and my good relationship with their council to make sure that I have, from day one, a nice trade treaty in place. If we can do it in game, it will be there. I will capitalize on it. I will capitalize on the fact that we are one island that's pretty much cut in half. And if any invaders want to come onto our shared island, why wouldn't we put in a mutual defense pact? That benefits me. That benefits my people. Why wouldn't I do the same with AQ? I have a good relationship with Emery. Why wouldn't I want to start trade relationships? I think it is absolutely fundamentally flawed that any king would come into the game and ignore the ability to use those relationships to the advantage of his people.
Yeah, and I think any king would do the same if they had really positive relationships.
That's right.
They would seek to get the most out of those. So what about concerns that because you get along so well with LV on the South Island, that it might lead to a sort of a sense of stagnation? Do you think that that's a possibility? And what do you think would mitigate those concerns?
So I don't really understand this concept of stagnation.
Yeah.
We're not playing Crusader Kings where we hit the fast forward button for 30 years to see what happens, right? How does the individual that starts in my capital city as a Genoan citizen, how does he understand stagnation? He's going about skill building. He's building his dynasty. He's building up his life and his gameplay. What does he understand? Why does he want to view what happens at a kingdom level? Why does he want to sit down with the rest of us kings and try and inject some sort of conflict or warfare? You touched on before, you said I'm going in with a very open, friendly way. Of course, I don't want any conflict. I don't want to have an area where I'm going in and I'm disadvantaged. I don't want that for my people. I don't want that for the people that have committed to me and that paid money for this game. I want for us to be on top. I want people that come into the game to be able to get a good gameplay experience. I don't understand the concept of stagnation, because I don't understand that if you're not operating at the Duke level, how that affects your day-to-day activities. You're still going to be able to go out. If you want to raid, I support that. If you want to be a bandit, I'm not going to say I support that, but I understand that that generates story, and that will generate some baron getting the shits and sending 50 troops after you or something. Operating at... sorry, go ahead.
That's true. And I think those who perhaps talk about stagnation, they're talking about, you know, on a really high political level. But when you think about it, I mean, the runner-up prize to this competition is a duchy within that same kingdom with a casus belli on that throne. So I think even that in itself is a counter to this idea of political stagnation. It's a seed for things to come.
But not only that, I mean, what are we talking about here? Do we want an area of chaos straight off the bat? Where do we see this in EVE Online? You know, there's plenty. You know, there's people that have done theses on, you know, how the political landscape of EVE shifted. But to the average player, they don't particularly. I'm not going to say they don't care about it, but it doesn't affect their day-to-day gameplay. We're also viewing this through the lens of the starting continent, which I think is extremely small-minded. There's a whole world to explore out there. We're talking about, there needs to be uncharted lands. This is phase 1, man. We're just on the starting continent. There's a whole world out there that's going to be raw, ready to plunder, ready to explore, ready to settle, whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, and who knows, they might even be already formed factions. We don't know what SPS has its surplus on those islands. But should
Mattis. God damn it.
Oh no. Shall we take a break?
No, let's play on.
Should other kingdoms look at your relationship with LV and feel nervous about that?
Why don't they look at the relationship Hajime has with AQ and feel nervous with that? Why don't they look at the relationship Ithakari has with Tilsia and feel nervous about that? I think a lot is being played into who I am. And I'm all right with that. I'm a big boy. I'll take whatever chips you want to put on my shoulder, and that's fine. But I think, again, I think there's a lot of assumptions that have been made. I don't think a lot of comprehension has occurred between the difference between what LV is and what I'm putting forward. I think if you looked at some of the most very simple surface level things that are different, I doubt, you know, anytime soon Zax is going to make lawful sacrifice of other races or tribes. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's going to be something he's ever going to delve into. And that's just a surface level, superficial example.
Yeah.
I think anybody that truly knows both communities, knows LV, and has connected with what I'm putting forward, would see that they're two different things. Anybody that knows me personally knows that I'm fiercely independent. I'm going to work with what I want. I'm going to put forward what I want, and then I'm going to work with a team that's around me. I'm not going to rely on somebody else to tell me what to do, especially somebody that's external to my baby that I've created. It's as simple as that. I can't say any more on it. I think there's a lot of assumptions flying around, and you know, it would be my hope that people would try and gain a better understanding before they start jawing off about it. But I can't control others. All I can say is keep it classy.
An interesting thing you said there, in regards to human sacrifices, is that so? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's really piqued my attention.
So here's the thing, and this, and a lot of people have put this out there. You know, you talk a lot about, you know, there's hints that my character will have the moniker Heart Taker, right? That's a story. You've seen Marshall, like we're talking about role play.
Yeah.
My concept and what I put forward, the community is rallying around me, and they've started to generate these items. And Marshall has generated this fantastic story about, you know, how I'm a rebellious lord, taking the power away from a apathetic king in the Genoan ritual, and you know, I'm pretty much shoving my hand up his chest cavity and ripping out his heart. And then, you know, the very pointed question was, you know, you talk a lot of, you know, there's a lot of overtones, and anybody who's been in my Discord has seen, you know, I'm happy to eat a Kipik heart, you know, whatever.
The poor Kipik, man. The poor Kipik.
I'm happy for my people to eat any tribe. It makes no difference.
You don't discriminate. Everyone is on the menu.
All equally tasty. So a very pointed conversation I had with somebody over Discord is, is this going to be a thing? Is this a role play theme for you? Is this something that you're going to allow? And I started to think about it. I'm like, you know what? In our Western ideology now, and for me personally, that idea is abhorrent. There's no human sacrifice. All life is valuable, right? Yeah. Particularly in the medical field I came from, didn't matter who you are, what uniform you wore. Mm-hmm. As if you needed help, you needed help. As long as one of mine didn't need help first. And unfortunately, if you were in the wrong side and one of my dudes needed help, that's just how it worked, bro. Sorry, that's it. But this adds to my, I suppose, mystery that I want to create around this, this whole black jungle kind of theme, a very alien, a very different culture that sees that type of, and I started to think about it, and I'm like, well, why not? It's actually supported by Genoan law. Creatures they kill, they consume, because they think that's how the Faden give them power. Right? That's the Faden spirits. They're taking it into themselves to grant them inner and outer strength. So I thought, well, why not? And I note that SBS has recently come out. I was going to raise this. Cannibalism is on the menu, boys. Meat's back on the menu.
Wait. Was that announced?
They said that they didn't explicitly say no.
I thought they explicitly said no a few times, but I might be wrong. If they're saying it's...
That they said they didn't. They said that it wasn't actually explicitly stated that there would not be cannibalism.
Interesting.
But anyway, so what I thought, right? So why? And they. I suppose it's very pointed to me that they note down creatures. They don't specifically say animals or things that they've hunted. The Genoa will eat creatures that they've come. That they've slain. So my thought is, if they're up against a mad combatant, say for instance a very meaty Broodveer, who I think are physiologically heavier than the Genoa, so they've got more muscle mass as well. If they're having a hard time defeating this dude, and then they somehow get to club him, why wouldn't they? For them, they're connecting with that Faden power. They're taking parts of this guy, they're eating him, and it's strengthening them mechanically. Does that have a buff? I don't know.
We don't know.
I'm all right with that. But lore-wise and role-play and immersion, if that's how somebody wants to play, I'm all right with that. Let's make it a thing. It adds to the mystery. It adds to the alien. It adds to the unique. What I will say, though, is Caprican law protects Capricans. Mm-hmm. So there's no eating of other people that don't want to be eaten. If you capture somebody else, like I think it was actually Marshall that said, can we eat POWs? He's like, dude, I don't care if you want to eat POWs. Eat POWs, that's fine.
No. Marshall.
In this sense, it's actually good for the Kipik, because I'm assuming Kipik are going to not be, in the Genoan eyes, a very worthy combatant, so this may actually be the turning point for the Kipik menu. We may actually be saying this isn't, something that's been a challenge to down this little annoying ant. It was, I swatted 8 of them in one swing. Like they're nothing. I'm not gonna eat them. So this may actually be good for them. I may actually become the new Kipik ambassador.
Well, that's certainly a very interesting take on it, Preacher. Look, you're obviously super passionate about your kingdom platform and this competition. We have gone massively over time, but we're so grateful to have you here on our
Sorry, people.
No, it's all been good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will just remind all of our viewers, if you want to support Preacher, you're sending your coins to the forum name King of the South. Now we've put it in brackets.
King of the South.
That's branding for you right there. We put it in brackets underneath Preacher's name here, but we're not 100% sure if things are case sensitive or not. So go to the description. Mm-hmm. Go to the description. We'll have it character for character. The capitals will all be there. We recommend doing it following the cases as presented there, and you shouldn't have any trouble. So those instructions are in the description below for supporting Preacher. And if you found this video helpful, please do like and subscribe, and we will be aiming to get more candidate interviews soon, and hopefully a Monarch panel before the end of the year. But for now, Preacher, thank you so much for tonight.
No. Ali, I'd like to thank you, and also I'd like to thank Dreamer and Uriel. I used to run a podcast too, so I know how much effort goes into it. So thanks very much, guys. Thanks for providing this platform, and thanks for generating content for OC and shining the spotlight on us.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Until next time, guys, this is Oceanus FM. I'm Alleykat. This is Preacher, and we'll see you around.
King of the South.